Everyone, and welcome to our Ingenious webinar. My name is Ahmed, and I work at the Royal Academy of Engineering, and I am the Communications and Public Engagement Officer who works mainly on Ingenious. And I'm joined today by my colleague Dominique.
Yes,
So,
morning
Dominique,
everyone. Thank you, Ahmed. Yes, I am the Public Engagement Manager here at the Academy. Thank you all for joining.
That's great. So the Royal Academy of Engineering is actually a national charity that does lots of work across the UK, internationally, and also including education policy and engagement. Part of it is our Ingenious public engagement grant scheme, and that's what we'll be talking about today. We fund lots of great projects across the UK. And today we'll be joined by two of our previous Ingenious awardees that will be telling all about their exciting projects. Okay, so just a couple of things before we start. This webinar is being recorded and might be published on our website. Your videos will be turned off throughout the whole event, so that's fine. If you'd like to ask any questions, the Q&A box is enabled, so you can put any questions throughout the event, and you can direct it to any of the speakers as well, and they will be able to answer your questions at the end of the presentations, and also at the very end we'll have some time for general questions. And we will start our presentation. The first presentation will be from Briony Thomas from University of Leeds, followed by another presentation from Richard Bennett from Reading Civic Society. Okay, so that's it. Before we start, I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction about Ingenious. And this is just a recap. You can find all the information on our website. But just a quick intro. So Ingenious is the Academy's public engagement grant scheme, as I said. It engaged the public with engineers and engineering, and it provides engineers with the opportunity to have training in public engagement and actually practice that. So that's one of the main things of Ingenious. Ingenious prioritizes projects across the UK that reach diverse and underrepresented audience in engineering. Funding is available from 3K to 30K for projects across the UK. Hopefully today we'll answer all the questions you have as much as we can about Ingenious, but also you get the opportunity to hear from previous awardees and to have a quick look at what an Ingenious project might look like. So that's enough of me. We are going to, I'll give it to Briony to start and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. So I'm going to talk about our project, which was called Mechanics of Life, Movement, Mobility and Me. So this was led by the University of Leeds in collaboration with Northern Ballet and Batley Girls High School. So the project really aimed to challenge perceptions of engineering by introducing new audiences to the mechanics of movement through dance. And we were looking at breaking stereotypes, increasing science capital, and promoting engineering with a focus on sort of increasing STEM engagement broadly, especially with young people and particularly females within underserved communities. So from an engineering perspective, our focus was really about showing how medical engineering cuts across boundaries and its role in everyday life and its impact on society. So we provided activities and opportunities for engineers to first develop their communication skills and their public engagement skills, and to help them showcase their work in sort of new and creative ways. So next slide, please. So, as I said, it was a little bit of a different project for engineering at the University of Leeds. So as well as the Ingenious funding, we also managed to secure some follow-on funds from ESRC for impact acceleration, and through public engagement funds from an EPSRC project that one of my co-investigators had. So we were quite ambitious with what we were planning from the initial grant that we put in for Ingenious. So we actually had to pull in extra funds to help us sort of deliver the work that you're going to see presented. So we targeted year 8 pupils at Batley Girls High School, which was, it's a diverse community, predominantly Pakistani Muslim, in West Yorkshire. So it was a fairly local community to Leeds, and based on an existing relationship that I already had with that school, which was kind of critical because of the short timeline that Ingenious projects run for. It's really helpful to have some of those relationships already in place. And we intentionally ran the project with year 8 because we wanted to work with an age group prior to them selecting their GCSEs, and where we felt that a fusion of sort of engineering and dance would be appealing. So the core concept, the creative concept behind what we were doing was seeing the human body as a machine. And we're exploring what that meant through design, physics, biology, performing arts, and then how that translated into education. So we brought together the engineers, the artists, and teachers at school to kind of co-produce this cross-curricular learning experience for the students that were going to be involved. And our key themes were mechanics of movement, anatomy, forces, and motion. So next slide, please. So we started off with public engagement and creative communications training for engineers involved. And we had about 35 engineers initially involved in this first step. And this was kind of an important part for us, because as well as sort of supporting the engineers to think about differently about how they might communicate the research and the engineering that we're involved in at the university, it was also an introduction to the project concept and to help us recruit a smaller group of, it ended up being 6 engineers who would continue on the project with us and kind of take a deep dive into the experience of co-production and public engagement. And we felt this was important because what we were proposing with the collaboration with artists and dancers was really going to take the engineers out of their comfort zone in terms of what they were used to delivering in public engagement. Many of them would have done science fairs and things like that before, but this was definitely going to be different for them. So that was our first step. And we got brilliant feedback on this. We brought in some external experts to help deliver this. Northern Ballet came along as well to participate in the afternoon of this sort of 2-day training that we held. And many of the engineers who didn't actually choose to participate in the longer project have certainly been far more engaged in wider public engagement activities at the university since. So this was the first step and a kind of a first initial success for us. So next slide, please. So the next stage, when we'd got a smaller group of engineers to sign up, we developed and organised a series of co-production workshops where we were bringing together the engineering researchers and technicians who were involved from the university, dancers, choreographer, and the learning team from Northern Ballet, and a series of teachers from across 5 different disciplines in the school, right from performing arts, DT, maths, physics, and their science lead. So all these people came together and we ran these sessions where we started to explore, if we were to create educational activities and experience days for young people in year 8, what could those look like, and how could we fuse the different knowledge and experience of all these different people within the team? How could we fuse that together to create something really exciting? So we ran this over a series of 3 different days with over the autumn, with sort of a good 2 to 3 weeks in between to give people a chance to reflect and for us to do a little bit of work independently in between. So next slide, please. So one of the first experiences that the pupils had within the class we were working was we brought them into the university while we were running the co-production sessions with the dancers and the teachers. We brought the young people in the university to have an initial introduction to engineering and a kind of hands-on experience on campus. And they took part in activities where they were looking at things like physics and trampolining, to think about the physics of movement. And they explored different labs, including they went into the robotics lab, and they did various, sort of fun hands-on activities. And the feedback that the students were giving and the things that they were engaged in on this day really helped us understand their interests and the things that we should think about using within the programme activities. So, for example, we never thought about using robotics as part of what we were doing, but the pupils were really, really keen on robotics. So we brought that into the project. And we embedded evaluation throughout all the activities that I'm talking about, so that we were continually learning and being responsive and flexible throughout the programme. So we were continually changing things and adapting to work for all the different participants involved, because it was quite challenging to have so many people from different organisations involved, which I'll speak about a bit later. So next slide, please. So all the co-production sessions and the planning all culminated in an experience day, which we held at Northern Ballet. And the students engaged in science and engineering content, looking at anatomy, forces, and range of motion. And they were responding creatively to the science and engineering content they were learning. They were then responding creatively through movement-based activities, and also subsequent activities that took place in design technology sessions in school. They took things back into school, and you can see there's mannequins in some of the images on the screen. They continued to develop activities with these mannequins in school that they'd been sort of manipulating during the day, as well as doing like dance workshops, so there's an image of them. They had a learning to pirouette class where they were talking about also the physics of spinning while they were having instruction from a dance teacher. And so every element that they learnt and every creative sort of activity they took part in, so creating sequences of movement, poses or visuals that they were doing throughout the day, they all formed part of some films that we produced subsequently. So everything that the students were experiencing, creating, was then integrated into films. So really bringing the engineering and the arts sort of together within that. And the day culminated in a live choreographed piece. So we were really, really privileged to be able to see Northern Ballet work live with all the things that they had experienced and taken on during the day to create the initial sort of concept of what the final film will be. And there's just a short snippet of this that we can see now. So next slide, please. So you can see the choreographer. The bits I cropped out was him shouting at the dancers and keeping time through that. But that was the sort of thing that actually many of the students had don't think any of the students had ever been to a ballet. They'd certainly never been into the Northern Ballet Studios, as well as having never been onto a university campus before. So for them to be able to see a lot of the behind the scenes working at both organisations was kind of really critical part to the experience for them as well. So in the end, we ended up holding over 20 events, from the training sessions right through to the kind of the co-production sessions, experience days, some of the team taking things out to festivals throughout the process as well. But one of I think the highlights were at the end, where we held a red carpet style film premiere for the school and then for a wider audience at the Everyman in Leeds. And then we also held a community premiere as well for the Batley community and the school community more widely to share in the activities and the films and share the work that the pupils have been doing through an exhibition that sort of was held alongside it. So we were really bringing together different audiences, from families to researchers to people who work more widely within the engineering sector and sort of university industry collaborators, to really celebrate and share the students' work. So as well as the films, you can see on the image on the top right, you can see some of the mannequins that were designed and painted and by the pupils, they were displayed as part of the exhibition, and many of them had written on words that they'd learned, because we had a big section on language and some of the learning and sort of engineering language, but also how that connects more creatively to artistic expression and language. So yeah, the film premieres were a really key highlight of the activities. So next slide, please. So in total, we created 5 short films, which included sort of before the choreographed performance, kind of created with the students involved, and behind the scenes, sort of where we were showing behind the scenes in terms of the making of the films, and then also interviews with the dancers who were talking about the engineering that they'd sort of learned and experienced in the project, why that's important to them as athletes in terms of their health and well-being. And so we created all this content based on the experiences that we'd all been through together, and then the students learning and integrated within that, which was it was really wonderful to see those outcomes at the end. And the digital content creation was really important in terms of creating resource that we could then use in different settings and share more broadly. Because in terms of in-person reach in our activities, we reached just short of 3,000 people through in-person events. But in terms of the reach of digital media, it was like over 175,000 people we reached through kind of social media and viewing the films online, and then print and digital print media reach, because we had various things in newspapers and Engineering and Technology magazine, that was over 350,000. So creating that content that could be linked to was really important and helped us reach a wider number of families and teachers in particular. So next slide, please. So for the students, in terms of the impact on them, it really boosted their understanding of engineering and broadened their perception of who can be an engineer, as well as in sort of increasing their general science capital. So we had in total a class of Year 8 girls sort of involved in this, and then the school actually wanted to bring their whole Year 8 group in to the university to experience the engineering day that they'd had. So we had another 240 Year 8 students in. And sort of in terms of our evaluation, 85% said they'd learned something new about engineering, and the shift in perceptions we captured through some of the drawings that the students did. So less hard hats and much more creativity and diversity coming through that. And one of the students said at the end, engineers can be anybody, which, that was brilliant in highlighting that. So next slide, please. So in terms of the impact on the engineers, they really increased their confidence, learned to collaborate with artists, which was something they'd never done before, and developed their storytelling and public engagement skills. And, you know, we had various quotes about how it had changed the way they think about communication more broadly, and how they felt that, you know, that sort of creative thinking, which they're obviously thinking about in terms of artistic terms, was much less daunting to them now, and they understood how they could work with the arts more to showcase their work. It also increased their respect for interdisciplinary collaboration possibilities as well. So next slide, please. So there were a lot of challenges in terms of logistical and cultural challenges across different organisations, scheduling conflicts, different communication styles, like some people prefer to pick up the phone, other people want to email. So there were those, and the pressures of multiple organisations, and the time frame, which actually was quite limited for co-production, was quite a challenge. Next slide, please. Sort of racing through because I'm now aware of time. But key reflections in terms of what we learned was the importance of trust, the value of creativity in terms of STEM engagement, and the benefits that interdisciplinary working can bring. So next slide, please. So in terms of advice from our learning, I would say prioritise relationship building at the beginning and make sure you've got enough time from that, and embed the sort of shared planning. It was really good for us to invest in that creative training at the beginning. That made a massive difference. And keep expectations sort of adaptable, because things changed throughout the project. We had big shifts in what was happening in Northern Valley as an organisation at the time, mid-project. So our flexibility was really important for that. So next slide, please. So in terms of what comes next, we're looking at developing more educational resources from this following on funding, and the project really has sparked longer term collaborations. So I'm going to end by sharing, we're going to share the trailer of the film so you can get a quick peek as to what that was like. So just to round off, thanks to Royal Academy of Engineering for inviting me to speak about this and for funding our Ingenious projects. It was an absolutely fantastic experience. If anybody's interested in the projects, I've left a QR code on here which will take you to a kind of project webpage, and you can see all the films there and a gallery of the work that the students produced as well. So there's a lot more information on what we've done there. So thank you very much. Happy to take any questions later as well.
Thank you so much, Briony. It's really, really nice and exciting to see how impactful and different that project was. And it makes me happy to see like Ingenious funding projects that are quite different and reaching out different audiences and going everywhere. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. We have one question, but in the meantime, you can still put questions for Briony and they'll be answered at the very end. But Briony, we have one question that we might be able to answer now from Michelle. They're saying that to understand the scope of the project compared with the different funding streams that you were awarded, can you please advise what percentage of the total cost was covered by the Ingenious Fund?
So it was about 65% was from Ingenious.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. And now we are going to move to our second speaker today, Richard Bennett. So I will give you the stage, Richard. Here you go.
We unmute and then visualize. Am I there? Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm Richard Bennett, and I'm Chair of Reading Civic Society and also Deputy Lieutenant of the Royal County of Berkshire. My background before I retired in 2013 was working for the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy in human resources and finance. And before that, I worked for British Rail, the relevance of which I think is probably apparent from the screen already. So I'm going to talk to you about our project Look, Draw, Build at Reading and Bristol stations. And this, what I'm showing you, is an extract from a report that we're doing that's an input to our funders. You can see at the bottom of this, our funders, our direct funders this year have been the RAE, Network Rail, Early Charity, Local Reading Charity and Reading Rotary Club. And our delivery partners, the engineering companies we have worked with, that we could not do it without, are Stantec, Ridge and Partners, Mott MacDonald, and Enervo and Tazika, and we've worked a lot with Great Western Railways and a firm of architects as well. Next one, please. So what's the project about? It is about engaging young people in architecture and engineering, but is focused around the history and the future of the railways. So we're trying to encourage young children to connect practically with architecture and engineering and railway history. We give them the opportunity to explore the functionality of a train station. We take them on, we organise and pay for them to go on a visit to Reading Station and also another station as well. Key message from one of our funders was get over the awareness of railway safety and access on the stations. And it's about sustainability and accessibility. It encourages children to teamwork. It comes from feedback and problem solving and design. And it's trying to inspire them in STEM subjects and careers and encouraging future female engineers as well. And of course, this year is the 200th anniversary of the start of the Stockton Railway, which I'm sure you all knew. So this project this year connects very well to that. Next. The project started in 2022, so this is our 4th year. The idea came from a lady called Gemma. When she was living in Reading, she had this batty idea of look, draw, build. And a friend of hers said, well, why not do it around a railway? You might get some money from Great Western Railways. So bear in mind, this is 2021 when she applied, sort of COVID time. She got the money, but she moved back to Barcelona. She needed a local business partner, which is how we connected. So our first 2 years, we had some money from Great Western Railways. They liked the project so much, they increased it the next year, and a firm of local accountants who supported estate agents who supported us for 3 years. That's Housing Estate Agents. 2024, we're fortunate to get an RA grant of 3,600. We also had a grant from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, which is matching that, and 1,500 again. Then in 2025, you can see it got more expensive, and we needed some follow-on funding, but I'll elaborate on that in a little while. And we got some funding from different sources as well. Next one. It should advance. And we've already got some funding secured for 2026. Come to that in a while. So we started by focusing our project in schools, in Reading schools. And we did that between 2022 and 2025. At the end of the 2024 project, one of the key projects in Network Rail said, have you ever thought of doing a project in Bristol? We went, no. And the more he worked on it, the more we started to think about it. And we thought, well, how do we fund it? Because basically it costs about 7,000 a location. And then we're very fortunate that the follow-on fund came up, that opportunity. And so we applied, and we're very fortunate to get that fund. And you saw on the earlier slide, we also gained some other funding as well. So this was the mad idea, going to Bristol. Next. So just one very complicated slide which talks about inputs and outputs. I won't go through it all, but I'll just pick some bits out. So two of us lead the project, one myself and other project manager lives in Barcelona. So we do a lot by Zoom and she does come over as well. We engage 55 built environment professionals from a number of firms that you can see there. And we had some great Western Rail organised to take the kids around the station, but he's really, really good. We produced a variety of educational materials, a couple of videos and quizzes, and we organised modelling tools to take to the schools, and you see those in one. So the principle of look is we organise them to go around the station. We then organise for the kids, as the teachers, to get them to start drawing what their model stations might look like, because that's the physical bit. And then we hold workshops at which we ask the children to build their model stations in groups of 3. And that's what we support in class. But there's a competition. This has a point. One of the kids in first year said, well, what's the point? What's the prize? Well, there's a competition. And so we'll cover more of that. So what did we achieve? This year, 20 schools participated, 30 classes, roughly 50-50 in each location. You can see the number of students we engaged and the professionals we engaged. We also had professionals judging the kids' models that they built, all right? And we have some events. So you can see some of the learning there and some of the long-term outputs. For the students and the professionals, some of the professionals really, really enjoyed it. You can see they were very good at it. Some of them were very cautious. Okay, next one. So what do we do? So we provide, first of all, to the schools, we provide them with a video about the history of the future of the railways, especially commissioned, linked very well to Railway 200. Then after that, we got them taken to a station. So on the right-hand side, you can see the visit. This is a visit of a class at Bristol Temple Meads. The chap in the distance there is talking to them. He did one school of 86 children at Bristol Temple Meads. He's brilliant, isn't that? His voice projection is great. The drawings, we asked the kids then to draw what their model station might look like. This really seizes some children and they work on it in breaks, but they work in groups of 3. And then we go and we deliver workshops in class. And on the right-hand side, you see one of the volunteers working with one of the schools. Okay, next one. So the classes that we delivered this time, we see the classes we delivered here to Reading. Most of them we had delivered to before. We thought, well, as we're doing somewhere some new, we thought, let's do the schools we know. And we had, I think, 2 new schools this year and one new school and one repeat from a distant year. And we had 2 SEN schools in that as well. In Bristol, these were all new to us. How on earth do we reach out to schools in Bristol? We did not have a clue. We were put onto something called the Life Skills Centre in Bristol via contacts in Network Rail. They were brilliant. They emailed all of the schools in Bristol with a video about the short video about the project and a brief about the project. Within 2 hours, we started to have applications coming in. And I think we had the full panoply of schools that we could deal with some reserves within about a week. But the Life Skills Centre was really, really good. They had the contacts and we kept engaging with them. And also to say a big thank you to them. Okay, next one. So engaging our people in architecture. So who did we get involved? So you can see the flavour of the different engineers that we involved, engaged. And it's how did we reach out to them? Well, we were lucky we went out to the companies. So we started off in our first year with a company called Stantec, partly because my colleague in Barcelona, her husband, had worked for them. But you had to find the STEM lead in these companies, and that's not easy. So we worked from that in our first year with Stantec. We ended up having some really high level people involved. Then one of their team went to move to Ridge & Partners, and hey ho, we got Ridge & Partners involved. Then we got Matt MacDonald in, and how well one of our Reading Civic Society members does walks, and he'd taken their team for a walk around Reading. And he was talking to them about the project, and they just loved it. It fitted them engaging their STEM ambassadors out in the community, and they just loved the project. In Reading, we involved a small firm of architects, we involved Civic Society members, and our volunteers in Bristol. We had some new companies as well. And we involved a DL from Reading, Berkshire, and also military engineering. So these are just some of the photographs outside the schools. Okay, next one. So what materials do we provide? Well, we provide each school with a box that contains all of the materials that they need to use, packs for each group of 3 children, and then some general cardboard and other materials. They're building a model station made of very basic materials. And we collect a load of cardboard toilet roll cores, bottle tops. Well, what else do you make a train of? And some other materials as well, but a lot of the materials we bought. And they were assembled for us in the first year. They were supplied from Barcelona, which is where Gemma lives, but we thought that just wasn't sustainable. And we were put in contact with a group called the Ways and Means Trust. And they support adults with physical and mental disabilities. And this took us into another area totally, because we ended up doing workshops for their team members, for their trainees, and we invited them to our public events and showed their models as well, not just the children. So it took us to another area. Okay. So impact, what did we deliver this year? We did 30 workshops, roughly 15 in each town or city. We engaged 900 students, 300 models were built. Okay. Next. So we had a competition. So the idea always was that we'd have a competition. So there's something for the kids to aim for, something for the children to aim for. But we had to have a criteria, and we had professionals running, actually doing the assessment of the models. So you can see on the list on the left, the judging criteria, we thought about very carefully. We tried to do it very professionally so that they had, the judges had to assess each model against each element of those criteria. The last one was the teacher's assessment and feedback. Frankly, quite often the teachers' summaries were not good. And so we had to harmonise those. And often the timelines of getting those back was tight. Panel members, you can see that in Reading, we had some from Reading Borough Council, the lead from Great Western Railways, a partner from Ridge & Partners, and engineers from Mott MacDonald and Stanton. Really quite senior people. They were interested, the senior people were interested in what their team members had been up to, basically. Then in Bristol, we had a much wider and bigger panel. And you can see we had the station manager from Reading and Bristol Temple Mead. She was really keen to do it. And again, some different people doing the assessment. Okay, next one. And you can see some of the models down below to see some of these. Well, what we did, we would rank all of the models against those criteria, and the top 3 emerged. And we organised that the top one would get a gold plaque, which you can see there. Next one, silver, Colcott Primary. Next one, bronze, Meekins. Go on, next one. Bristol. And then in Bristol, just exactly the same thing. We did Our Lady of the Rosary, got gold. The least likely school, given them what I was there, I thought that none of them had a chance, and just goes to show what I know. Then we went to Sea Mills, and then 2 Mile Hill. And this time we did a highly commended to Coton Gardens. It was a brilliant model. It was 4 times bigger than any other model, because after we left, they kept working on it. And we hadn't made it clear that they should not do that. So that was a lesson for us. make it clear the restriction. Next one. So what were the prizes? So this was responding to one child's comment to us. So what's the prize then? Well, one, we gave them a plaque. Two, we gave them some books. And yet on the right, you can see a presentation that we did last year. The books that we've reviewed, the books that we gave, are they suitable for age? Given that we're aiming at years 5 and 6, the one about buildings is suitable for age. The one about engineers making a difference we thought was good, but it's too old. And the Stockton and Darlington, it was really aimed at the teachers in all honesty to inspire them a bit. So we're going to rethink those prizes. Keep going. Next. So the Gold Award winners get, so this was the magic that made them go, wow. They get a visit to the Didcot Railway Centre if they're in Reading, and we fund that. Just been talking to school, the winner this year, so we fund their transport into Reading, the train to Didcot, and their visit at Didcot Railway Centre. In Bristol, it's a visit to Brunel's SS Great Britain. It's all still railway themed, and it's very Bristol thing as well. Okay, next. So feedback form. We realised the REA wanted a feedback form, but given we're dealing with children in years 5 mainly, Gemma and I were going, how on earth do we do that in the first year that we did them? And we didn't do the feedback forms. And Dominique afterwards said to us, now you know, Richard, it's conditioned, don't you? Said, well, we don't know how to do it. We said, we can help with that. If you'd asked us, we could have helped. And so this year we got a feedback form. We give the kids 5 minutes, no more, right at the end of the session to fill in a feedback form. Now, these aren't very readable, but then what we did was got someone in Spain to summarise some of the key components about, was the project fun? Did you learn something new about what architects and engineers do? So good, 60% there, that's good. Did you find out how engineering improves lives? Yes. Are you interested in finding out more about engineering? Well, not so great. But a couple of quick things, if I can give you a laugh. So just extracting a few things. What did I learn about engineers? You get so many different types of engineers. It's hard. I still want to be an architect. Nothing, because I know so much about engineering. Bear in mind that child was year 5. Engineers never retire. They never give up. One thing I learned about engineers was about architects. Measure things twice so you don't get it wrong. So you get some really interesting bits of feedback. And a couple of others. We need engineers. The job's hard. Teamwork's important. They don't just start, they plan to the design. They're very similar to architects, but they're more hardworking. It's a really fun job. Resilience and perfect design does not come from the first time. Year 5 child. Engineering's fun. It's really boring, and I do not want to be an engineer. So I think I'm going to stop there. Next one. The importance of engineering, these feedback forms, you get so much out of them. So how do we go about sharing the event and what we've been doing? So for 4 years, we've had an event reception at Hasson's estate agents in Reading. They're one of our funders. Yep, noted. And they were one of our funders, and we got Dan Pierce to come along and talk about the visits to the station, one of the teachers. In prior years, we've had one of the STEM volunteers as well. We then did an exhibition. This year, we did it in the Oracle Shopping Centre. Prior years, we've done it at Waterfest, Reading's Waterfest in the Abbey Ruins, a huge event, but you didn't get much traffic. We also did it in Reading Town Centre. Once again, it was the traffic. This was really successful because of location, and you can see the number of people going up and down the stairs. We made some connections for next year as well. Next one. This year we did it differently. We did it in Mr. Brunel's original engine shed. And rather than doing a separate exhibition, we did an awards night. and the exhibition. We brought nearly all of the models to the engine shed from the schools. So the panel members, when they were assessing each model, they didn't just work from the teachers' assessments, they actually were able to see the models as well. And they could see how different they were. So they could make a wider assessment. So that was quite good, but it took organisation and it cost money. And you can see we got Mr. Brunel there as well. So we had about 62 people there, huge number of students, parents. It was really successful. Okay, next. So it showed the project is capable of expansion. We did that second location in 5 months, but we needed a partner to help us make it happen. Local Civic Society didn't want to engage until the end. We're lucky it was STEM Leeds and engineering companies in Reading put this on Bristol. And several of our Civic Society members travelled to Bristol on a very early morning train to get to schools ready to deliver at 8:30 in the morning and to brief the STEM ambassadors. And the events night really, that branding just drew parents and teachers and schools much more successfully than we ever did in Reading. So what are we going to do next? We've applied to GWR to do Reading and Bristol in 2026. We've got some money, but we have to do the project management differently because my colleague in Barcelona can't do it again. So we're going to have to look to someone to pay someone to do that. Next one. And just go around the lessons quickly, if you run them all. So I'll just cover them very quickly. Key things, RE introductory event. We were very skeptical. It was a great event, very helpful. You cover the cost of attending. It's a great place to visit, and it's a great sharing opportunity. The application process, it's detailed. Do not underestimate the evidence to be collected and the time it will be taken. And you'll be very delivery focused, but you have to collect evidence and feedback as you go. Engaging schools, it's getting through from scratch. We faced admin barriers in Reading. You couldn't get through the teachers. You'd always have the admin lead. Quite difficult to get through sometimes. It's making sure it fits the curriculum, but you have limited time. And we had a load of targeted emails, reminders, checklists for the teachers. And get feedback from the teachers. Can be tricky. It's about fitting it in their timelines. Volunteers, just bear in mind, if you want STEM ambassadors, they organise in the autumn for the following year. Keep it different. You stand a chance, not painting sheds or gardening. Time is charged to a budget, and that varied enormously for different companies. Their contacts and priorities change. Just keep active communications, WhatsApp, reminder emails, and we did lots of training for the volunteers in physical, video, all that sort of stuff. Collect feedback at the time from your volunteers. If you leave it, they've moved on. It's so easy just to be delivery focused. We found retention year over year of the ambassadors was difficult. Because their jobs change, they move around. That was really difficult. So we didn't have that continuity. Exhibitions, talk to you a bit about that. All I can say about the press is good luck. We almost totally failed with the press. We had a little success in the first year, really difficult. And on reporting, meet the deadlines and the RE deadlines and agreed funding follows. If you have a problem, let the RAE know. If you change your time and allocation of funding, and just keep an eye on your budget. It's quite difficult if your project evolves. And the final thing we had never thought of was benefit in kind. We'd never thought about that before, but we evaluated it for our RE report. Last year it came to £45,000, variety of things, and it'll be double that this year. So just think about that, having that in your mind, something you're going to have to report on. Next one, I think we're there. We're done. I've made we're done. That's too long to run, as you predicted.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was just trying to get my camera on. Thank you so much, Richard, for sharing your experience. And again, another example of how different Ingenious projects Could be, and again, it's really nice to see that we're just covering a lot of places, covering a lot of engineering disciplines as well. We have a video, but I doubt that we have time to see it, to watch it now. But I'm gonna post it in the chat for everyone to have a look at that video as well. Okay, thank you so much, Richard. Oops, and just trying to get the other. So we're nearly there. I'm just going to give a quick overview about the application timeline and process. As you all know, Ingenious is now open for applications, which is great, and it will close in the 24th of September. So a long time to think about your ideas, get it ready, and apply as well. So once the scheme is closed for applications, we do, our public engagement team, we do a quick eligibility check, so as to make sure that all the projects are like engineering, public engagement, and based in the UK. So just a quick check. And then after that, we pass the applications to be reviewed by external reviewers. So they're public engagement professionals. So each project will be reviewed by at least 2 public engagement professionals, and then we will collect all the comments and questions and pass them to you, back to you, and you'll get time to reply to these. And I find this stage is quite important, especially if any applicant is kind of new to fund application writing. That gives you an opportunity to get feedback and questions about your proposal and reply and respond to them. So once we get back your responses, we pass both the application and your responses to the panel to review them. So the panel is made of like fellows and also public engagement professionals, and they review all the applications. And then we meet up for the panel to select all the projects that will be funded, and that will be decisions will be made around February. So yeah, the Ingenious process takes a long time. So bear that in mind if you apply, and if you're successful, the first part of funding will be released around April time, and projects mostly will start in May. So I don't know if we have any other questions. Is the application reviewed on rolling basis? I think I see Dominique is answering that. So the applications it opens once a year, and once it's closed, we'll be funding some projects, and then it will open again next year. So it's not it's just once a year. The projects will be completed then. So if you start your project in May, you can decide if your project will end in 2 months, 5 months, a year, but the maximum you can have. So if you start in, for example, May 2025, the projects will end the following year in July/August. Depends on if you're working with only schools. So your project will end in July. If you're working with community as well, you can have until August as well. I think if you have any questions, we have a few minutes. You can put them in the Q&A. But in the meantime, if you have any other questions, either for us or for Richard and Briony, you can contact us at engagement in our email, or you can book a meeting with us. For one of our public engagement team members will actually chat with you about your idea, or if you have any questions. And also, as I said, everything was just like a quick overview, but you can find a lot more information in at our website, Ingenious. And also we have a newsletter that we publish every quarter. It's a general public engagement newsletter, but you can find a lot more about, like, we share stories about projects and a lot more in the public engagement scheme. Okay, so we have more questions. Do projects that are in the collaboration with the universities qualify? Yes, you can apply. Yeah, so we get projects from universities, science centers, charities, and a lot more. So yeah, universities definitely apply for Ingenious. If we don't have any more questions, again, anytime you can contact us, our email, or you can book a meeting with us. But thank you so much for coming and attending, and hopefully that was helpful just to have a flavor of what Ingenious projects actually look like, and their experience with Ingenious and sharing all the lessons and the successes of their projects. And thank you so much, Dominique, for being here and answering questions as well and supporting. And thank you so much, Nima, for all the technical support. And yes, that's it. Again, reach out if you have any questions, but thank you so much and have a lovely day.